I'm gonna try to do this again. It's been a lot of resistance. So, I'm gonna go to the teaching. No, I'm actually gonna go to down here. I uploaded the papers I wrote, and they are over here. This is basically the first week and second week of the teaching by Blecker. Okay, so I took notes on this. And remember when I mentioned that this one has been having a very difficult time with the vicious cycle. And I did a video on that and did some observations. There were a lot of adaptations that happened. Well, yeah, a few weeks have passed since that was done. And I'll show you the video that I did. It was the teaching series. I did it both in Romanian and in English. So I did this video, right? The vicious cycle. Kukul. Okay, I have to fix that. On May 15th, 2024. Wow, that's a long time. May. Okay, so maybe like a month ago. Took me a month. Okay. Well, yes, another big obstruction that was discovered was that Anna or Lauren or this one absolutely loves to fall on the dual basic urges, on the DBUs. Now, what are the DBUs in the teaching? Okay, so let me kind of explain to you what the DBUs are. I'm just going to draw them on this thing. Actually, you know, better yet, I'm going to look them up on a website because, to be honest with you, I don't know them. Dual basic urges. I don't know them off the top of my head. Okay, the 4 dual basic urges by Dr. Robert Rondell Gibson. Well, there's a lot of information on these DBUs, the 4s, the picture of man. Initiative, resistance, form. The 4 DBUs are this one. See? On the physical level, one wants to gain comfort, pleasure, and one wants to escape pain, discomfort. On the mental level, one wants to gain attention and to escape being ignored or rejected. On an emotional level, one wants to gain approval and to escape disapproval. On the level of will to power, oh, this is the first time I've seen it like that. Will to power. This one, I remember it written down as transcendental level, which I guess would be will to power or power. One wants to gain being needed or feeling important. Oh, this one is really into this. And to escape feeling inferior or feeling useless. Well, that's a very nice way to describe these 4 dual basic urges. Yeah, the 4 great games, those are like, I'll talk about those some other time. Those are also very interesting. What does it say? Command plus. Okay, so it says the 4 dual basic urges are not right or wrong or good or bad or should or shouldn't. They are simply byproducts or side effects of living, not the whole purpose of living. Because all humans are subject to all the four dual basic urges. When they are made, the whole purpose of living, or unconsciously, beginning during the uncomfortable birth process. Okay, so when we are first born, they have to result in conflict. One wants all the gain, it's true, side, and none of the escape side. And this is not possible on planet Earth. You cannot just have the gain side. The way of intelligence is not to self-improve by rejecting the four dual basic urges. Okay? The way is to observe self and one's reactions to them, checking to see if they are the purpose of living or not. They will come up and can be ignored if one chooses. Another realization that this one had, I guess in the past couple of weeks actually, was that these ideas of the teaching, these teaching ideas, like this individual mentions here, is not right or wrong or good or bad or should or shouldn't. They just, this one realized about these teaching ideas, even the vicious cycle that this one talked about. Is just, they just are. These ideas are just there, they're present. They're not there to say, oh, I shouldn't do that, or oh, I should try my best to not get stressed when it comes to the vicious cycle. It's not, it's just that that's what they are. They're just there. These ideas are just there. Just because one has the ideas, that doesn't mean that one gets to avoid a certain thing that comes up. No, all these not eyes, they still come up. The disappointments, they still happen. But now one is aware. Oh, you see this drawing, like the drawing I drew about the vicious cycle. And now one is aware. That's the only thing that one can do, just be aware. But one cannot avoid being disappointed. You cannot say, oh, no, I have these ideas and now my life is going to be pain-free. No, the ideas are just there. They're no good, no bad. It's not about self-improvement, like this individual said. So these are the four dual basic urges. Okay, and the thing about these four dual basic urges is that, from what this one observed, they are part of personality. When disappointment comes to surface, when it comes to the vicious cycle, this one in particular falls, or as a result from serving these four dual basic urges. This one is deep into feeling the disappointments. Well, okay, so another way to put it is this. I'll give you an example. This one gets disappointed so easily. For whatever reason, perhaps this one, just the way that this one is made. I can't say that I was mistreated as a kid or somebody really hurt me, although certain conditioning from childhood does matter. But the fact of the matter is that there are other people that suffered much more than this one, and they do not get disappointed the way that this one gets disappointed. So during these 4 weeks, from the last time when I did the video, and we talked about the vicious cycle, this one observed, yes, this one gets disappointed so easily. The ego gets hurt so easily. And the first thing that this one goes to is this physical thing. The physical. And eats. This one loves to eat. And the body, of course, goes through all kinds of stresses to have to deal with all the sugar that this one ingests. Sugar in everything. Creamer from the coffee. Chocolate. Oh, this one has a sweet tooth. So of course that the body goes through all this like stress, the cycle. There's a point here where the body adapts. There's a big adaptation around here, right? Somewhere in here. An imbalance happens in the body. So what was discovered was that, yes, this one gets this disappointment, right? From the expectation, one gets disappointed. Then the feeling of disappointment happens. And then the physical state of balance or imbalance results from overeating. Another big part that was observed from this vicious cycle is perhaps this will to power, feeling important. So last night there was a big realization happened where, these big realizations happen very often, but then they are forgotten due to a lack of a strong seventh decision. And the seventh decision I will talk about, that is a very valuable thing to know about. Seventh decision. I'm going to write it on a list to talk about at some point. So yes, these big realizations happen, but they go away due to this lack of a strong seventh decision that keeps that real I there to pay attention. And the realization was different last night from all the other nights or days, in that the realization involved these 4 dual basic urges. And this one told X, or God, that I don't want to serve these 4 dual basic urges, but you know what? I like to eat. What am I supposed to do? Should I not eat a cherry? And I says, well, that's ridiculous. I'm judging these ideas of this teaching. It was a conversation, between X and what was going on. And it's okay to eat a cherry. Of course it's okay. It's okay to have some cigarettes or coffee. But the thing is that Anna overdoes it. And the thing is that Anna tends to also make it dirty. What do we mean by making it dirty? What does this one mean by that? Is that it's okay to do all these things. Yes, they happen, and a real I in a healthy state watches these things and reports to X what is false or what is to this one's advantage or not, without judgment. So a few things happen in which this one judges, I should be better, I shouldn't do this, I should stop myself from doing this. And then there's other things that this one thought about. For example, well, what if somebody that kills, they're fulfilling some dual basic urge? Is that right? No, it's not right. Ultimately, no matter what happens, X does it. But there is a judgment from this one's point of view, because this one's taste for pleasure is so intense that it feels guilty at some point for doing it so much and serving that particular dual basic urge. In this case, the dual basic urge of the comfort and pleasure on the physical level, and the will to power. This one does want power. Well, I'm only telling you things that this one observed for self. Perhaps for you it's something different. Perhaps for you, your home base, what you fall on, would not be on the physical level. Perhaps you might fall on the emotional level. And again, in the order that these dual basic urges fall on, or one does, dictates the type of that person. Gurdjieff talked about these types. I didn't actually read. I read that book only once. He does talk about 12 different types of human beings, and the Bible talks about the 12 sons of Jacob. So we are all different. Just because this one falls on certain things first, it doesn't mean that everybody is like that. We are all different. So another part of that big realization that happened last night was that Anna feels guilty for serving these dual basic urges, because Anna would rather have a strong real I instead, to be able to observe and work with these ideas. It's very, very difficult to do the teaching from a personality point of view. And a lot of other workers would get upset with this one. When I would say that it's very valuable to live by the way of understanding, because it's a little bit a higher level than personality. A personality, we're talking about these two ways. Let me draw them for you. Side A and side B. And I don't know if I talked about it. I don't think I did. But side A, basically, Phil Blecker talks about this. Side A is the way of justice. And side B, no wait, I made a mistake. It's not the way of justice. It's the way of survival. Survival. And side B is the way of justice. There's so much about these ideas, but they all kind of intercorrelate with each other. They kind of depend on each other in a way. They work together all the time, constantly. The evolution of man has 4 different levels. In the beginning, there was the way of survivor, the way of survival, kill or be killed. Then after a while, a way of justice was introduced, and that people lived like that for a couple of thousands of years. Then the great teacher came, and he introduced the way of love or understanding. No, that was Jesus that introduced that way. And the 4th way, which is the way of intelligence, which is what we are talking about right now, or consciousness. So we are in the 4th way. The way of survival, who introduced that, I don't know. Perhaps it was Buddha, but I'm not sure. I can't confirm that for sure. Don't believe everything you hear. The way of justice, it's probably that Moses introduced that, where everybody had to live by the way of the law. Now, in the time of Buddha, it was, like those Indian men, yogis. They used the body and they were strong, but I'm not sure about this. The 2nd way, the way of justice, Moses might have been the one that brought that. The way of love, Jesus, for sure. And the way of intelligence or consciousness, well, from what I heard others talk about, this was around for about 100 years here on Earth. It's what Gurdjieff and Ouspensky wrote books about. Krishnamurti, Jiddu Krishnamurti talks about that. And Phil Blecker talks about this and introduced that. So Like I was saying before, in another video that I did, the teacher, Phil, this man, talks about the value of living or practicing the way of love or understanding, and coming out of these two inferior ways, which are in the picture of man. That this is the picture of man, where you have the physical body, you have an awareness, and up here you have X, or God. And on one side you have side A, the way of survival, which was a very violent way to live life. And on side B, the way of justice, you internalize that violence and you put the violence towards you. You feel guilty about yourself. And in the realization that this one had last night, this one is aware of being slave to these four dual basic urges, and pleaded with X, with God, to get enough help to come out of this desire to serve these pleasures in life that this one overdoes. And it does take a decision to make a decision and want to come out. If the decision is not strong enough, what was discovered was that this one falls back on serving these DBUs unconsciously. And I like how this website puts it. They are not right or wrong, or good or bad, or should or shouldn't. But it does take a big decision to want to come out of putting these DBUs first. And I would rather have the real I present for longer periods of time, a more bigger percentage of the day paying attention, instead of the other way around, where this personality, these two sides, unconsciously going from side to side, and being asleep. It would be useful to see what other websites say about these four dual basic urges. The Place of Language in the Teaching. Yeah, Marshall Summers, that's a good website. Four dual basic urges. Let's see this one. I haven't heard about this one. Where is it? Well, maybe they didn't update this website in a long time. This is the picture of man. Four dual basic urges, the harmony workshop. Oh, it's the same place, and it's empty. The fours. 4 forces, 4 questions, 4 great games, the 4 dual basic urges, 4 ways of man. Okay, so they have everything here. Everything is in 4s. Okay. Let's see. What do they say about it? The 4 forces. Phil Blecker goes into an in-depth description about these forces, where, like I mentioned before, they kind of go parallel to the evolution of man, where initiative or first force is the way of survival, resistance or second force is the way of justice. Third force, the way of love and result, would be the 4th way, the way of intelligence. We, as humanity, we are barely trying to create a form. We're barely trying to come out of these 2 inferior sides, side A and side B, the way of survival and the way of justice, and barely begin to practice what Jesus came here on earth to teach, which was the way of love or understanding. So humanity is barely, not very many human beings, I don't think they live by what Jesus taught. Most of us, we just basically just live in these 2 inferior ways, the way of justice and the way of survival. And that's the big realization that this one had last night. It's very difficult, it's very hard work to come to this form and create a form for oneself first, because one needs to begin to love and understand oneself before loving and understanding the others. And I'm going to say something about this understanding. I'm still here. Well, I wanted to tell you something about this understanding. And it just passed. The thought just flew away. Wow. Maybe it was personality trying to say something about it. Well, oh yes, now I remember what I was going to say. The way that one begins to live by this 3rd way of evolution, there you go. The 3rd way, which is the way of understanding. These 4 goes hand in hand with these 4. Okay? So why does this one have such a hard time creating the form? Getting to a place where this one lives in understanding. Like I mentioned before, it's because the 4 dual basic urges. There's not. Well, this one is just trying to blame it on the DBUs. It's just the level that this one is at. This one is having an incredible hard time. It has a weak real I, a weak seventh decision, being disappointed easily, falling back on eating when getting disappointed. So, this is what I wanted to tell you about this third way of evolution, this form, the third force. I was told that one way to do this, because we can't love. Once we live in the way of justice or the way of survival, there is no love there. There's just violence. There is no love. It's impossible. So what one does is you begin to practice love. You practice it consciously every day. My husband Kevin said, love is a verb. You do it. So you practice it. You wake up in the morning and you say, today, no matter how mean somebody is going to be to me, instead of responding to them by A side, the way of survival, or B side, the way of justice, there you go, these are the ones. Instead of responding to them with these two inferior ways, on purpose, I'm going to practice love today. So I'm going to practice understanding them. I think it was yesterday, I went to the pool with my children, and this Russian woman just stood there, and she was on the phone, she was ignoring me, and I was there right in front of her, ready to pay and get in. They were about to close, we just wanted to swim. She just ignored me, she was Russian. And I'm like, oh man, I was beginning to be so mad at her. I'm upset. And finally, I remembered this form, this third way, this third force, the way of understanding, the way of love, the form that Anna is trying to create in herself. And I says, well, let me understand this woman. Well, let me see what is up with her, because I'm just going to wait until she finishes her conversation. And I'm not even going to be mad at her, okay? I'm not going to see her that let her see me that I roll my eyes. So she eventually got off the phone, and she looked up and she smiled. And there's something very familiar in these European people. Growing up in communism, we kind of understand each other. And subconsciously, we kind of all made this decision. I think it's built in us. It feels very familiar to this one. And then I understood, and I'm like, it's okay. You were on the phone. You're busy. You're working. And just in that moment, I felt this third way of evolution. The way that Jesus showed us to understand your next door neighbor, to love one another the way that you would want to be loved yourself. And then after that, we just had a nice conversation, and we smiled, and she realized that I was from another country too. No judgment of what the Russians are doing in Ukraine, or vice versa. So it happened. This third way of evolution was practiced for a period of 20 minutes, 15 minutes that I was there with that woman. And wouldn't it be lovely to practice this love all the time, not just once a day for 15 minutes? What if every single second when I wake up in the morning I say, instead of serving these DBUs and eating and getting pleasure to escape something, I come out of this inferior two ways, the way of justice and survival, and the real I, or the observing I, is floating there closer in the body with a decision, a very strong decision to practice love from the moment when one wakes up until the moment one falls asleep at night. And look at resistance. Resistance is something that cannot be overlooked, because I was upset with that Russian woman because of this resistance. I wanted justice. I wanted her to give me the attention that I deserved. Another thing that was observed, of course I'm kind of digressing again, is that if one has a problem with resistance, well, a lot of people get upset with this one for saying, oh, if you don't live by the way of understanding, you cannot do the teaching. Or if one has a problem with resistance, you cannot do the teaching. One is not doing the teaching. And this one does have a problem with resistance, because something unresolved in this one made this one react to the Russian woman in disappointment. So this one does have a problem with resistance, and it is a necessity to look at these things that come up whenever resistance happens, and what makes this one react that way whenever resistance touches this one in a certain way. That is a problem. It's not a problem, it's it's an obstruction. If one is not willing to consciously look, why does this one react so sarcastic, or sometimes very cocky to certain people? Sometimes this one reacts to women in a certain way. If one has a problem with resistance, like this one has a problem with resistance, this one cannot move forward. It's necessary to look at, why did I react like that? Why did I hate that person? Because of how they looked. It's a lack of understanding. It's being raised to live life in a very violent way, which is the inferior two ways: the way of survival and the way of justice. I have no right. She doesn't have to give me attention and approval. What right do I even have to go to that pool? Come on, I'm from communist Romania. We don't have pools. So this resistance is also like something very valuable to look at. It would be interesting to... So this website has the four basic urges, the 4 ways of man, the 4 great games. To be honest with you, this one has not been looking at it too much, but this one plans, so on top of the 7th decision, this one also plans to look at the 4 great games. That's another valuable thing to look at. These 4 questions, you know what, I never understand these ones. Maybe I put it on the list. 4 great questions. To look at that. Let's see what other things came up. Well, I guess Dr. Bob talks about these in this video. He talks about the picture of man too. Hold on, because I think my audio is set to play somewhere else. Sound output, MacBook Pro. Let's try it now. There are many theories about the structure of man's consciousness, and many devotees of each theory. There is much talk about the subconscious, the mind, etc., with little or no clear conception of the discussion. It is these many theories and the misconceptions about them that have stood in the way of a clear understanding of much that is being offered mankind today. Is it just me or there's no sound? Okay. So they talk about the picture of man. Life principle, which is X or God. That's the awareness function, and on the bottom is the physical body. Really, it has no sound. Interesting. So you have X and the body. X, or God, life principle. Sperm, going to the egg. Why is there no sound? Well, that's interesting. They made a movie about this. Huh. That's weird. Let me see if other videos have audio. Why doesn't that one have audio?
This is your paycheck.
Okay, they do. It doesn't have sound. So yes, the baby grows in the womb. Okay, it floats in the water. It's undisturbed. The four forces are probably automatically working from X. The infant, the zygote, doesn't do much. Everything is being done for it. Okay, so it's being developed. What does this have to do with the four dual basic urges? I would like to understand. Okay, so it's living in paradise in the mother's womb. Everything is taken care of for the baby. And it's being born. And it must be traumatic to come into this world, being slapped. Now it can feel everything. It has a body, yes. You can break bones here on Earth. Where is the sound? Okay, so this one, it develops the awareness function, and it has a body. I wish this video had sound. Okay. Lungs. Yeah, it must be painful, huh? To first take a breath when the baby comes out of the womb. Well, even the brain is split into two, so these two sides are forever present, even in the physical form. The left and right hemisphere. That's an amazing idea of the teaching, is that man has not one brain, but maybe 3 brains. This awareness function is commonly called I. It is aware of existence, it is mind, and not to be confused with intelligence. It can be intelligent. Okay. The awareness function, or I. Life principle, or X, physical body. Well, it would be useful if this video had audio. Yes, the baby comes into this world. Yes, it's painful. Oh yes, another idea I wanted to mention was that at this moment the baby is making the unconscious decision, and that is over here on the physical body, that says he wants to be non-disturbed, which is those 4 dual basic urges, to be non-disturbed. He makes this decision unconsciously. And down there on that line, it's the disintegrating result. The master decision, the prime motivator, decisions made with feeling, not words, are below the conscious level, and this decision or conclusion to be non-disturbed will remain unconscious within that individual until recognized, reevaluated, and acted upon through reevaluation. Victoria Productions presents Study for Experimentation. Rondell's Science of Man, series number 3. 4 dual basic urges. But where's the sound? Sound would be so useful. I guess he doesn't need sound. But yes, that master decision for dual basic urges, to be non-disturbed, or Adam's apple, like I've heard it mentioned before. These are the 6 different families of not I's. 1 complains, 2 sticks up for rights, 3 pleases, 4 believe and obey authorities, 5 wants to self-improve, and 6 wants to blame. Oh, it's very nice that they made a movie about it. That is the point of the work, to find and make and live a new purpose. Okay, the new purpose of living, different than the one to be non-disturbed. I might have to cut out this video from my video because it's not really my video. Okay, well, it's an interesting movie to check out. I might add it on the description of my video, so you guys can go and watch it if you want. So I'm going to copy that. So, just like that video also mentioned, that basic decision, these 4 dual basic urges are basically that basic decision when the infant makes subconsciously upon birth. That is interesting. I didn't actually think about mentioning that. And the video also mentions that, did it mention that a new decision needs to be made? A new purpose of living, a conscious purpose of living. What that video didn't mention is that on top of those 6 decisions, the 1, the 2, the 3, no, the 3 doesn't go there. The 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5, and the 6. There is also another 7th decision, where that new purpose of living could be made by making that 7th decision. This 7th decision says it is important that I am alive, that nothing else matters to me than to be awake. I don't want to live by these 4 dual basic urges anymore. I don't want to just go and eat chocolate when I get disappointed anymore, or for whatever reason. I've had it with these not eyes. I want to be aware. Aware, alive. Nothing else is more important than that. Well, let's see what else does this video do. If they tell me to take off my video, I'll take it off. They are not the purpose of living. They are byproducts of living. To be non-disturbed. It's true, based on this 4 dual basic urges, the function is a disintegration result. Down there, the action is a disintegration result. That's the big realization that this one had last night. It needs to have that conscious, a new conscious, purposeful living to replace this desire to always acquire the pleasure. It's a long video, huh? Well, this could mean anything. Oh yeah, it's a long video, huh? So, there's a lot of information. Seventh decision. The evolution of man. The resistance. The vicious cycle. It's a lot of information. It's like you deal with one thing and then these other ideas come around from different angles. But anyway, it's very valuable and useful to look at these 4 dual basic urges and make that decision to decide to not have these DBUs rule the life subconsciously anymore. Practice that 3rd way of evolution. Practice love until one day it just happens automatically, the way that it happened with that Russian lady. That 7th decision is necessary. A decision after one sees this 4 DBUs. This decision that would say, I don't want this anymore. There has to be something better than this. That decision is necessary. And a new purpose, a conscious new purpose for living that would replace the old subconscious purpose to be non-disturbed. I forgot to mention that these 4 dual basic urges, sometimes they are the Adam's apple. So I'm just going to make this black thing here look like an apple. Because it is, they are the original sin. We are all born into it. And it's very difficult to make this decision and to consciously live by the way of understanding, by practicing love. It's very difficult creating this new form, and we, or this one, is alive here on earth at a very interesting time where it is a lot of work, and in a way it is our duty to put in this work so that one day when a baby is born, maybe 1,000 years from now, they will live in the 4th way of evolution, the way of intelligence. everything else would happen automatically for them. But right now, there's still a lot of work to be done. This one needs to fully come out of serving these DBUs and spending more percentage of the day in that new seventh decision with a new purpose for living and practicing love. 150% of the day. Well, that's all I have to talk about for this video. So I'm just gonna actually write it down here. The experiments. What would be the experiments? Experiments. Practice love. Consider a new purpose for living. That seventh decision. This one, I will talk about it more in one video. This decision says, I want to be alive, aware. This one wants to come out of the 4 DBUs. Another thing is decide to be married to God instead of this mammon, which are the 4 DBUs. Practice. My new marriage, my new marriage with God. Don't cheat on God with mammon or the DBUs. Practice love or understanding. I don't know if you have any other ideas on what to do or observe, let me know. These are just ideas. Okay, so I think that's it. I will come back some other time, sometimes in the future, perhaps in a week or 2, and we will take it from there. And maybe I want to talk more about the 7th decision and look more at these other ideas that I don't really know much about. For example, the 4 great games or the 4 great questions and the 7th decision. Another thing I wanted to write here under the experiments or these ideas are not good, good, bad, self-improvement. They just are. These things will just happen. The 4 DBUs will just happen. We the first thing that Anna does is that she feels guilty about it. But these ideas, they just are. They're not here for self-improvement. I think self-improvement will be not to somebody's advantage. So that's it. That's all I have. A lot of things that I said perhaps came from personality, but it's just at the level that this one is at, and we will talk again in the future, and we will look more at these ideas, and good night.